Joining us now is independent elections analyst Michael Atkins. Mr. Atkins, good evening to you and thank you for your time. I hope you did follow, at least in part, some of these arguments. Who made more sense for you?
Well, you're asking a layperson. What I can say is that the IEC seem to have acted entirely correctly within their understanding of the law. You know, there's no real fingers being pointed at the IEC, except for the small matter of the bias. So the IEC's position, to my mind, comes across as clear and reasonable, although obviously the court will have the final say on that.
The effect of this decision, Michael Atkins, if tomorrow the court comes out and says the former president can indeed, his face can be on the ballot paper, will that impact in any way on the work of the IEC?
I don't see the decision either way impacting on the formal, regular work of the IEC. To be honest, if Mr. Zuma is not on the ballot paper, then his supporters still have every right to vote for the MK party. There is no loss of their ordinary democratic rights, and the work of the IEC would proceed in either case. Obviously, there's been some heated rhetoric. Now, there is a difference between what people say in the heat of the moment to crowds and what will happen on the ground afterwards. So I don't think we should prejudge what will actually happen, and there should not be anything that hinders the IEC from proceeding.
Yeah. Well, be that as it may, however, we do know that some leaders, or at least some members of the MK party, for which former President Jacob Zuma will most probably be its face, if indeed the court does rule in his favor. If that doesn't go their way, however, there did seem to be some indications of disquiet, and I remember distinctly the IEC almost addressing the former president directly as to, quote unquote, his utterances and those of the members of the MK party. Is that going to be perhaps one thing that we watch closely for?
Clearly we do watch it closely. If there are any inflammatory statements made after the court ruling tomorrow, and if there are any actions or protests which go beyond the realm of the law, then of course we have the Electoral Code of Conduct, which last week, among other parties, the MK party signed their agreement to follow those rules. And those rules are built into the Electoral Act. And so if there are any transgressions of the Electoral Act and that Code of Conduct, then of course complaints can be made, and the IEC again would be forced into the difficult position of needing to take suitable action. Clearly they understand the sensitivity of the situation and they have a difficult task. But we haven't seen in this any indication of the IEC not following the Electoral Act very carefully.
Yeah. All things considered, Michael Atkins, is there anything that the country should be worried about here, or is it all a matter of court process, and once that process is done, the IEC must carry out its duties, and that is to ensure that we have a smooth running of elections?
You know, some of the statements made over the last few weeks create the impression that there might be something to worry about. So one can't gaze into a crystal ball and say, well, there either will or there won't be anything that goes wrong. But, as I said, the IEC have thus far done their job correctly. We expect that they will continue to do so. If there are any disturbances, well, we do have laws in place. We do have security services, who are mandated to take appropriate action if the peace is disturbed to that extent. Or if there are complaints that violate the Electoral Act, those can go to the IEC and then to the Electoral Court. So we don't know exactly what will happen, but I'm not disturbed in the sense that we do have ways to deal with whatever happens out of this situation.
Yeah, and that is absolutely correct. The actions of the police perhaps bear testament to that, because Visvin Reddy, who belongs to the MK party, has already been charged for such utterances. Thank you very much for your time and analysis. Michael Atkins is an independent elections analyst.